Welcome to Still with Purpose. This is Amanda and Christy.
Our goal is to dig deep and discuss real, raw subjects in pursuit of greater self-awareness, positive transformation and healing, and to link arms and journey with you to find purpose and passion in life. Hi, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about the question, what if the thing you've been trying to hide is actually the first thing people notice about you? Scary thought. Do you have a quote for us?
All right. Healing and transformation can only unfold when we courageously confront the truth, no matter how difficult. So let's talk about what shows up before you even talk. Pretty much in any kind of group setting. And it really is about the blind sides that we might not even realize. There's certain personalities that stand out to each one of us. It's possibly abrasive or annoying. Those personalities, the reason they're annoying is because they come forth towards you with an energy that's off. And it's off because it's internally off. They are trying to mask up or poser up to basically hide what they don't want you to see, except it's so overboard that you could call it right then and there. So interesting. And since I have a love of watching people in seminar rooms and just seeing how people act, it's so intriguing to look at. So basically, until I'm ready to look at my severe blind sides, I will keep up the delusion that it's not me attracting what I'm attracting. And the attracting means repelling too. So when you come at a group with all your insecurities and your mask and you're trying to hide what you're trying to hide, it actually creates a situation that repels people, which speaks to the whole original insecurity of, I don't feel like I belong here. And so now I have to over accentuate my poser mask tendencies, and insecurities come through the roof.
So around the delusion piece, I think delusion is a place we can get to where we feel uncomfortably comfortable being in, because it's not comfortable because it's not reality. We're just making ourselves buy into this delusion that people aren't seeing what I'm trying to hide. And I've mentioned Matthew Kelly before, talks about how we all have this innate desire to be ourselves fully, and it never really goes away. It's like this hunger that doesn't go away. I think that's why we are uncomfortably comfortable, but comfortable in the sense that as long as I'm in delusion world, it's okay. And people aren't really seeing it. You're feeding yourself that lie.
Yeah. You can picture someone in your life that is so ungrounded in who they are. They're out of integrity with themselves. Their word means nothing. You know, they come into the state of lying as a pastime, and they don't even realize that that's just creating more and more of that life for them. If we turn around, I should speak more from I really try and do that. When I get grounded instead of masked up, then I'm able to come at a group of people and be like, I'm totally and complete and whole in God. So how are you guys? You know, like I'm not taking on all of your stuff. I'm standing grounded in who I am. And actually the energy is so fierce that people will actually move out of your space that are in delusion around themselves. It's such an interesting thing to watch. And I've said this before, I practice this all the time at the events I shoot, because we have like 21 meals together. There's a lot of time to see what you're attracting. Even the conversations that start around you is what you're okaying in a way in your whole beingness. So you can think of someone that you think is just the most meek, mild human ever. You would never sit down and just start cussing in front of them. That's an energy read. You're reading their groundedness and who they are, and it's setting up a boundary of how you're going to act around them. So when I first started, right when I was, still healing from my last divorce, I sat down at a table by myself, and I'm in leadership. So people, they want to come over and say hi and whatever and get to know you. Great. I want to get to know them too. But the first event, I attracted all men, and they were just players, the feel of a player. And I was like, oh, nice. This is what I'm attracting. So I must be in my needy attention mentioned getting energy right now, but I took note of it and I was like, huh, interesting. I'm hanging around married men that have already shared in the room. They're struggling in their marriages. And it's like, I'm not your girl. I gotta find some different groundedness so that I cannot attract that into my space. It's super interesting to watch. You can do it in really any situation. So that alone is enough feedback for you to say, this is where I'm at right now. This is the energy I'm in right now.
I think another, like you said, speaking from the place of I, a delusion that I tend to take on quite often is everything's okay and I'm in a great mood. And so I find myself a lot of the times just smiling and like, how are you today? Oh, everything's great. Everything's good. I'm sure people listening to this that know me will be like, no, she does that a lot. And it's probably, if I'm having a bad day and I do that, I'm sure people are like, well, that doesn't seem very genuine, even though it's me. No, everything's great. So I think that's a way to mask up and live in a delusional world sometimes, at least on my part.
Yeah, I haven't looked into this, but my friend feels like she has toxic positivity. I'm like, that's interesting because it's not being real with what's really going on. But you also are trying not to be a complete downer in this situation. And there's not a lot of time to be like, oh, I've joked about this before when some stranger says, hi, how are you? I start going, well, my knee hurts and going into my whole story. And just because watching their face is so funny. They're like, wait, I didn't actually want to know all that. But I'm truly just doing it as a joke, but it is so fun to watch their face on that one. But as we go through life and we're getting the feedback from the groups we're in, there comes a time if you want to shift and change and be self-aware that you have to look at the repetitive occurrences. Like if that's what I keep attracting, I'm the common denominator. So my energy is attracting that. So where do I need to get grounded in myself again and really dissect? If I'm not happy with what I'm attracting, that is all on me. So I'm the instigator. I'm the one that is okaying that energy to be around me.
And it's easy, though, to get into that victim mode, which we've talked about a lot, and say, no, I'm not the problem. It's everyone around me. And that's why I'm attracting this negative situation over and over.
Yeah. I mean, even if you aren't an angry person and you feel like everyone's angry around you, you are still choosing to be around that energy. So eventually you will become angry.
Mm-hmm.
You will become like the 5 people you hang around most, which is a common quote a lot in the personal development world. But here's a little addition to that. This is just a side note of not only are you the common denominator of the 5 people you, I would say not hang around, but let voice loudest in your life, because they could be influencers on YouTube, but your loudest is your internal critic. And so since you're your biggest saboteur, you are going to go listen to the inner critic the most. And the inner critic is going to go attract people that are going to speak to that crappy core belief again, because we're not about sabotaging our lives consciously, but unconsciously we are, because we are still buying into the belief that I'm not worthy of great things. I'm not worthy of having great friends, quality conversations, a good, happy life. That's what I'm going to keep attracting. So I'm going to attract even the conversations in the groups that I attract, because it's going to speak to that life. They're living the life that I believe I deserve as well.
That makes sense. As long as we keep buying into those misbeliefs, we're going to put forth that to other people. And then that's what we attract into our space.
Yeah. Going back to the inner critic, if your inner critic is the main person whispering to you and buying into the belief that this crappy core belief is your life, you have to make a conscious decision to take every thought captive. And that's biblical. Stop the madness and stop the thoughts around that belief. Not only abolish the belief, but you have to be so aware of how you're setting yourself up and sabotaging yourself by gravitating towards people and conversations that keep you in that crappy core belief.
The idea of taking every thought captive is so empowering. We're capable of making ourselves think or not think anything at any time. And so if we put enough discipline around it, we can truly set our minds on changing our thoughts. And the Bible in Colossians 3:2, it says, set your mind on things above, not on on earthly things. So we are fully capable of setting our mind on things or not setting our mind on things. So when you say take your thoughts captive, truly we can do that. Anyone listening to this who's never thought of that, I just want them to know that is definitely a capability of every human.
Yeah. And if you don't believe you deserve more, that's going to be a hard road to run down. So now you have to make a conscious effort to change up your 5 friends, change up what you're listening to, talk to the people that you actually admire and ask them what their top 5 podcasts are, and start infiltrating your mind, your spirit, your ears, all your senses into different thinking, because the way you think now is not going to get you to where you want to be. You actually have to transform your thinking, and then your actions will match that. And then when your actions start matching it, your whole trajectory changes, right? So you have to make a conscious effort. If you don't have great friends, then start with content. Start with the content that's coming in through your ears or whatever you're watching. You will be transformed, because once you start hearing these new ideas that are completely like, what? I've never even thought about that. That's what personal development is.
I think also sometimes you just need a reset. We were talking about the images on our backgrounds. For those of you who are watching the video version of this, you can see them. And mine is the Thorn Crown Chapel in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. And I went and visited this chapel when I felt like I needed a total reset. And so I went for 2 nights by myself. No one was with me. And I stayed in Eureka and I visited this chapel the majority of one full day, just reading the Bible and focusing on God and His Word and reflecting on situations in my life that I did not feel were going well. That was right at about a year ago now that I did that, but it was a true reset. And every time I see an image of this chapel, I think back to that time where I was working with God to really take captive of my own thoughts and to steer them in a direction that would be forward movement for me and help me to understand things a little bit better and gain more wisdom. But I truly needed that thinking reset. So maybe that's another way. Just get away for a few days or stay in your home, but start really paying attention to what you're looking at, reading, like you said, and bring more good and more positive things into your mind.
Yeah, that's massive. And get out in wilderness.
Yeah.
Put your body, physically exert your body. I know when I go on bike rides or snowboarding, I'm so mentally exhausted that I do drop down into my heart very easily. I've bawled bike riding before because I decided to put praise and worship on. It's like, okay, now I just feel like getting off my bike and being like, what do you want me to hear? And so absolutely agree with that. Get quiet. We've talked about that tons. I think we're so afraid of getting quiet. And it comes back to the opening question. What if the thing you've been trying to hide is actually the first thing people notice about you? That's what you want to shift. This is why you want to get quiet, because we all see it in you within a couple minutes, maybe not consciously, but subconsciously we feel your energy around yourself. If you're wondering why you constantly feel like a weirdo or not accepted or out of place, that is a total inner job. That is inner work that needs to happen. There is not one human on this earth that is going to make you feel good about yourself if you're committed to being a weirdo loser. If you're committed to that, you will make that happen for the rest of your life. And you will hang around like-minded people to make sure you feel that way. So blind sides are the most painful truths. They are so painful to hear, and we're often not really willing to remove them, right? Because it's a lot of work and it's just so normal for us.
Well, and if they're blind sides, we're not even aware.
Yeah, not even aware. And so the scariest part is that a complete stranger could tell us what they experience of us within an hour of hanging out with us. You could ask for feedback from a complete stranger, like, hey, I just wanted to ask, what was your experience of this conversation, me in general, of how I show up? I'd love to hear that feedback because I'm really doing some inner work and I wanted to know what your read is, because it's really great feedback because you don't know me at all. It's one of the things actually that we used to do at the first seminar company I shot for. We would show up to the event. The students would show up and they'd kind of do a mill. They'd introduce themselves and try and say hi to as many people as they could. Then they were told to get into horseshoes in small groups. And you were asked to stand at the front of the horseshoe and answer a question. And it was just a miscellaneous funniest question. It could have been heavy or really light. Like, what's your favorite outfit to wear at Halloween? Just some weird trivial question that means nothing. So the person will respond to the question and then they go in complete silence, and it's called the feedback arc. And the whole point of this is to prove that a complete stranger has such a read on you within 10 minutes of you talking. You actually make an impression. I can't remember the stats on this, but I think you make like 70 impressions on someone within 30 seconds of meeting them. They've already scanned you, judged you, come up with a box that you're in and all the things. Then the people would go around and give their feedback. What's your feedback and your experience of this person? Just like I was saying, you could ask any human that after 10 minutes. And they said, do not hold back. This feedback is life-changing. It would be like you come across as standoffish. You seem like a know-it-all. You're harsh. You're critical. I felt like you didn't want our support. I felt like you didn't see me. You're insecure. You're abrasive. They popcorned the feedback. It's like, what just happened? As a people pleaser, you want to protect them. You do not want them to suffer through this pain, right? It's excruciating for a people pleaser.
That sounds horrifying. But I'm curious because I think our tendency is to be critical of other people, sadly. Did you have any experience where there was someone who got the feedback, oh, you seem very genuine, you seem kind? Did you experience that, or was it all typically harsh?
There's probably some people that will comment on this video because a lot of my friends are from the seminar room because I've been in the seminar room for over 20 years. They'll be like, that's not how it went down. But that's how I remember it. I think the first round was how I experienced you. And then they kind of went into the whole thing that we talked about before. I'm mirroring what you don't like in yourself, or you're projecting what you are onto me. So you can't see in someone else what you don't possess inside yourself. So if I see you as critical, I recognize that quality because I have a critical spirit. So I can't label you as anything unless I actually understand the quality. So I think the first round basically was how you came across, and that's from your energy and how you feel about yourself. So you're seeing all the critical nature. And then they said, you're mirroring yourself. How you view them is some of your stuff. You only recognize in them what you have. So then they're like, okay, great. So I just exploited myself. I just told you exactly how I feel about myself. Now the feedback could be actually right on. They could be coming across that way. But if I get the feedback abrasive and I feel insecure around you because you're intimidating. And I've seen that quote before. Am I intimidating or are you intimidated? Because that's two different things. You're choosing to be intimidated, but you could come at me like I'm not intimidating and be like, hey, what's up? And I would have a really great conversation with you. But if you're coming at me intimidated, then what do I do with that energy? Yes, I can try and make you feel comfortable with yourself, but not everyone has the time to do that. And if you're committed to being intimidated by me, I'm not going to change that because feedback's just feedback. It doesn't mean it's the truth.
But going back to, was the feedback then in the room given a lot of times what the people were trying to hide?
Yeah. So the person receiving it is going to be like, okay, cool. I was called really abrasive 4 different ways. So maybe I could shift that energy with such good feedback that it's like, man, if I'm coming across that way to complete strangers, then I'm coming across that way in every group setting I'm in. If I chose to take that feedback as possibly the truth, possibly a blindside, then I could say, that's not serving me, period. So how can I shift? Is it just my facial expressions? Because my facial expressions are right on. I can't hide. I think you said that too about yourself. You can't hide what's going on in your heart because your face is showing it.
Yeah. I've always had really strong facial expressions, and it's something that I don't particularly love about myself and would love to be able just to turn it off. Like I wish I had a switch sometimes, but I don't. Yeah. In fact, early on in my career, I was working with a client and we were going over some project, and clearly I wasn't buying into the vision that she had, and it was all over my face. And she made the comment, you do not have a good poker face. And I felt terrible because, I was just wearing my honest thoughts on my face. I couldn't hide it. But yeah, that's always been a trait of mine. And it's gotten me trouble more times than once.
Your face is like, you haven't sold me yet. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not enrolled. Exactly. Exactly. We're not enrolled in the personal development world. I'm not enrolled with your attitude that is abrasive and condescending. I'm not enrolled in that. That is the true person you were created to be. Therefore, you are abrasive to me and you're standoffish and you're not open. That's the feedback I would give to the person that I'm viewing like that, because I've been that way. I see those qualities in myself and I've done a lot of work to shift it.
We're saying one person could give feedback that's reflective of themselves, but maybe the key is if you do hear the feedback as a pattern, then it's like, okay, I need to listen to this.
Yeah. Okay. This helps me get to my point here.
Okay.
So then the second round is so intriguing because they actually ask you a deeper question. Like, tell me about your favorite birthday party that you had. And maybe someone didn't ever have a favorite birthday party, but they talk for 2 minutes about, I've never had a birthday party. I've never been fully loved, in my opinion. So they go into a vulnerable share. And then the feedback is so incredible. And that's what you're asking is, where's the positive feedback? The positive feedback doesn't come until you drop the mask and the poser and drop down into who you truly are, who you truly want to show up as. And that's through vulnerability. It is such a beautiful transition. I'm not kidding. I've seen biker dudes with tats, the whole 9 yards. They look rough and they are the sweetest dolls of men. They are just like, I, was abused or whatever, and start telling their story. And you're just like, holy, you're a beautiful man. You're a beautiful soul. But I never would have seen that if they didn't cut the bull crap and drop the mask in the poser testosterone stuff. The thing that's speaking so loudly is, no, you're a hurting man. That's actually what's speaking so loudly. And that's showing up in your anger and all that stuff. So yeah, it was so beautiful because they would go around and share, and you would just see this whole group of people that said the most horrific feedback are now completely in love with this guy, and they're going to support the crap out of him. This is the first hour of the event. They have 7 more days to go. And this small group is bonded, like maybe they've never bonded with another human before in their lifetime. And it's just over vulnerability.
I mean, that sounds amazing. And I'm sure it's so emotional to witness. But I think something you said is important. Going back to the positive feedback comes after vulnerability. So maybe it's also reframing in our minds what is positive feedback, right? Like using the example that I used, or your friend with the toxic positivity. If I'm telling myself that positive feedback is, oh, she seems so happy and so nice, maybe it's redefining in my mind. That's not the positive feedback that I should be after. It's more, oh, she seems genuine and truly comfortable with herself, or okay being vulnerable and sharing. Those are the positive pieces of feedback that maybe we should all be after.
Yeah. And I want to be really clear. Feedback isn't positive or negative. We've put that label on it. So if I was in a situation where we were giving the original feedback, which was more critical, quote unquote critical, if I was talking to the abrasive biker guy, I would hear all the feedback that everyone else is giving, the surface feedback. But honestly, my feedback would be like, you look really sad and unseen. And it's like, oh, now we're getting down to the core of what you're trying to hide. You feel unseen and unheard, which is pretty much every human being's desire, is to be seen, heard, and understood. But that would be my feedback. Being in these rooms for so long, I just know we all have the same core desire. So you can just go on a deeper level there. But yeah, I would be really aware that feedback isn't positive or negative. The reason it bugs you is because it's something to look at. It doesn't mean it's the truth. And none of these labels are you and who you were created to be. You've just bought into a belief somewhere, self-protecting belief, that you have to come across this way or else you will get broadsided and screwed over.
Yeah, it's funny. I think the word feedback may even be a trigger for me, because as we're sitting here talking about it, being in the corporate world for 20 years, it's all about giving and receiving feedback. You are trained that it's good to, on a regular basis, ask for feedback, and it's good to give feedback. And it could be constructive criticism. It could be an opportunity, which is another way of labeling negative feedback. And so the fact that you're saying feedback is neither positive or negative, it's just something for us to take and assess. It's something for us to take and look at, but it's not necessarily the truth. That goes against everything that I've been trained on, because you are supposed to take feedback very seriously in the corporate world and act on it and change things and fix things. So it's interesting to just have a different perspective around feedback.
Well, the feedback they're giving you is their truth. That doesn't mean it's your truth.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a saying, if you're called an ass 3 times, you should probably buy a saddle. Like, saddle up. That doesn't mean you're an ass for the rest of your life. That means you have a certain area in your life that you got to work on because you're coming across as an ass to the world. If you care, bottom line, none of the stuff we talk about matters at all if you do not care to change one thing about yourself. This is solely for people that are doing some inner work and thinking about, why is my life not working? I need to get some feedback. I need to find out why I'm the common denominator, why I'm attracting the same exact things over and over. That's when the pain hurts and you actually make the change. When you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. Now, if you aren't sick and tired, all of this stuff sounds like a waste of time. But really, a person that says personal growth is a waste of time is absolutely an unself-aware human that is probably affecting large groups of people with his or her personality and damaging, because we are all able to work on something in our life and really shift it.
There's a balance there, because there are certain things, there are certain traits that we all have that are natural to us, and we're not going to be able to, quote unquote, fix them or change them, right?
Yeah.
God made us who we are, and we all have strengths and weaknesses. And sometimes it's just about being aware. And we've talked a lot about just own your weaknesses and be open and transparent about them. It doesn't always mean that you're going to necessarily change it, or that you can, but it's just accepting it and being upfront with other people, or not trying to hide it. Because what we're saying here is, if you try to hide it, the more you try to compensate for it, probably the more it's going to show up and get stronger and stronger.
Yeah, I think just the self-awareness is the key.
Yeah.
And bottom line, no one's feedback matters more than God's. And if you're asking for his feedback, he will actually tell you through different ways, but he'll also, in a loving way, he changes you. We don't change. You have to ask for his help. He changes you.
Yeah, God's fully capable of changing our hearts.
Yeah, we've grabbed onto all these personality traits because it's kept us safe, because we've been screwed over.
Mm-hmm.
We've been damaged. We've been used. We've been obliterated. We've had heartbreak. We've created all these self-protecting mechanisms that have served us to keep us alive and safe. And now as an adult, it's like, I'm responsible for figuring out, if I don't have the life I want, I'm solely responsible for that as an adult. Yes, I went through that tragedy, whatever people went through, and that formed me into who I am. I wouldn't trade anything that I've gone through, because it's made me an incredible, resilient human. Now, do I want to keep attracting more drama and chaos? No.
No.
So if I don't want to keep attracting that, I got to do some work, right? Because I picked up these bad qualities. But what you're saying, I have a strong opinion and I am a strong personality. Well, I know in our seminars, we had quadrants of what personality type you are. I'm a doer and a controller type personality. But when I'm in groundedness, I don't need to control a thing. I trust absolutely everyone around me. So why do I need to you need to do it my way or the highway. So I'm still a controller, but I'm not snapping my fingers and people need to do it my way or I'm not happy.
We've talked about too before, you're the counterfeit of your gift. Our strengths and weaknesses are the opposite of each other. So if you have a weakness in one area, turn it on its head, it might become your strength.
Yeah. And you and I have talked about the feedback you've gotten in life or at work or at home, and trying to figure out who you are going to be at home. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's a more nurturing person than the person you have to be at work in order to get the job done. Like, you're paid to do a job, but there are ways to figure out, how can I tone this down and still be super productive?
Yeah. I think that takes us back to holding our thoughts captive. Just like we can hold our thoughts captive, we can also show up the way that we choose to after we know ourselves and we know our tendencies. It's like, I want to be sure in this scenario, maybe it's work, that I put forth these qualities that I know in myself to be true versus in this area. But again, we do have that capability.
That's exactly a perfect way to end this, because you could choose today that you're so grounded in your feminine beauty, strong woman, that you can show up to work and just be a fantastic human to work and be with. Or you can choose completely opposite if you're going into your crappy core belief that you're never enough. And now you've got to show up with a mask on and you're going to whip everyone into shape or whatever needs to happen at work to get that job done. You know, you can come across as two completely polar opposite people.
Yeah.
And there's one that feels really good when you get home, and there's one that doesn't. And that's the feedback you really need to listen to, is what does your heart feel about yourself when you get home?
And going back to our quote, if you choose the latter one, which is not fun to be around, people are going to still see that maybe it's insecurity about not being a strong person, you know, whatever it is that you're trying to hide.
Or your insecurity of like, no one sees me and no one hears me. So now I'm going to be a raving.
You know what?
Because damn it, people are going to hear me. I'm paid to give my opinion. It's like, okay, girl,
Yeah.
that's not fun to be around. So it's so intriguing to start looking into some of this stuff. And what are the reflection questions for this one?
Yes, great conversation. And we do have some journaling questions to reflect on this week. The first one is, are you afraid to find out your blind side in order to grow? And the next one, are you willing to ask 5 to 10 people, what do you think is a blind side of mine and holding me back in life? And lastly, write about the feedback and journal about where is this showing up in your life and what is it costing you to stay the same?
And come onto our Facebook group. It's a private group that we are keeping private so that you feel safe to discuss some of this stuff. And just know that we go back and add comments too of like where we're at when the episode drops, and maybe some more reflection on the actual episode. So come be a part of our community that we're building.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for your time, and we will hopefully talk to you again next week.
Bye. Thanks for joining us today. We know your time is valuable, and we hope you have a phenomenal week.
Until our next episode, find more content and social links at stillwithpurpose.com.